Welcome to Donald's Psalmody class for presenters and tenor singers. It's a lovely sunny day outside and I'm just in from mowing the grass and had my shower. I can hear the neighbour mowing his grass, but hopefully it won't interfere with our singing. Now, the next tune in the 1970 edition of the Scottish Psalmody is Barrow. It begins so, mi, fa, so, and we'll sing this tune to Psalm 33, verses 6 to 9. And as before, I encourage you to join with me. You can sing the soprano part and I'll move into the tenor part, and you'll hear the harmony as I slip in and out of the soprano and the tenor part. As before, I'll comment on the psalm afterwards. So Psalm 33 at verses 6 to 9, 4 stanzas. The heavens by the word of God did their beginning take, and by the breathing of his mouth he all their host did make. The waters of the sea brings together as an heap, and in storehouses as it were he layeth up the deep. Letteth and all that live therein with reverence fear the Lord, at all the world's inhabitants dread him with one accord. For he did speak the word, and done it was without delay. Established it firmly stood, whatever he did say. So I hope you were able to follow that. Let's just quickly go through these 4 stanzas, which as you read through them you can see speaking about the glory of God as the creator of the heavens and of the earth. And in verse 7 it says, the waters of the sea he brings together as an heap. The gathering together of the waters in Genesis chapter 1, the word that's used here in the psalm is the Hebrew word kanak, which means to gather, from which we derive the word Knesset, which is the name of the Israeli parliament. And you can look that up for yourself. There are several words like that about gathering things together. Even the word synagogue means the same. Synagogue is actually a Greek word. You've got the word synagogue, and these come from Greek words. You've got it in, for instance, synthesis, where you're pulling things together, synthesis. You've also got it in the ecclesiastical assembly that we call a synod. That is, things being gathered together, the men and brethren being gathered together. And indeed the word ecclesiastic, even that's comes from a Greek word which means to call out. But so Knesset means to gather together, and he's gathering the waters together. So what you have in these verses in 6 and 7 is the mighty power of God to control, manipulate, and restrain mighty waters. He has considered the heavens in verse 5, the watery depth in verse 7, and then he addresses the earth and its inhabitants in verse 8, let earth and all that live therein with reverence fear the Lord. And he gives the reason in verse 9, for he did speak the word, and done it was without delay. So that's verse 7. In verse 8 it says, "Let earth and all that live therein with reverence fear the Lord." This is the concept of standing in awe. And it might be of interest to you to know that the National Geographic magazine in December 2011 looked at what the commonest biblical phrases were in current use in the English language. And this phrase, stand in awe, was actually the third commonest biblical phrase in current use in the English language. You might be interested in, well, what was the first one? If that was the third one, what was the first? Well, the first one was actually the phrase, from time to time. Now, it wasn't the King James Version of the Bible which created the phrase, but it certainly popularised it. It was a magazine. That issue of the National Geographic was covering the 400th anniversary of the King James Version of the Bible, and even as I recall that was the very first video I ever put up on YouTube, was about the 400th anniversary of the King James Version of the Bible, which you can look up on my YouTube. So the commonest phrase was from time to time. The second commonest phrase was the root of the matter, which you can read about in Job, the root of the matter being in him. And so the third phrase was this one that we have here, stand in awe. So, or with reverence fear the Lord is how we have it in the metrical version. So then we come to verse 9, where it says, "For he did speak the word, and done it was without delay." And this almost certainly refers to the creation. When we read in Genesis in chapter 1, the Lord just calling the creation into being. And you'll remember how it says in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And God said, "Let there be light." That is, he spoke, "Let there be light," and there was light. There's a phrase for this. We call this Fiat Creation, with the concept of "let it be done." You may think that a Fiat is an Italian car, but long before the Italians had car, the word Fiat is a Latin word, and it means "let it be done." And you actually find it in the Latin translation of the Bible, what we call the Latin Vulgate. And if you look at Genesis chapter 1 verse 3 in the Latin Vulgate, it uses the word fiat. It says, "And God said, Fiat lux, let there be light. Et facta est lux." And the light was a fact, if you want to put it in colloquial English. Let there be, and it was done. So the word fiat occurs twice in Genesis chapter 1, and indeed 81 times throughout the Latin Vulgate, excluding the apocryphal books. There's another use of the word fiat in this modern day. It's used in legal situations, but you may have heard the term being used, fiat money. And this is quite relevant in this modern day for you to think about. Fiat money is money that bankers create just on a computer. Now, nobody else is allowed to do this, but government allows central bankers, central banks, just to create money. If they want to lend money, you just go in and they put on their computer and they put so many £1,000 they want to lend to you, and you go away and take this money and spend it and pay them back interest. And all they've done is created it out of nothing on a computer because they're allowed to do that. So that's what they call fiat money, and it's that that's been bankrupting the nations of the world. Because, of course, what happens is the banks kept on lending more and more money until the day came when the people couldn't pay the money back. And that is why you got a run on the banks. That's why the banks collapsed, and that's what we're still trying to recover from since the banking crash way back in 2007. So, from 2006, the Scottish Christian Party was warning about this in our manifesto, and we have done ever since. So 14 years later, everything is beginning to catch up on people. You can find on the Christian Party website my interacting on that subject with Danny Alexander, who at that time was the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, and we were both fighting in the Inverness, Nairn, Badenoch and Strathspey constituency. I'll put that link on the bit below the video. So that was 2006. We had our crash in 2007, and in 2013, lo and behold, we had Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency which is independent of central banks, and it is threatening fiat currency, that is the ability of banks just to create money out of thin air. It used to say that money doesn't grow in trees. Well, it does. It's just, if you think of trees as paper, it's just paper money. But they just create it out of nothing. And this is causing the tremendous debt crisis that the whole world is in. So that was 2013. So what has happened now, 2020? Well, of course, they've been trying to create more and more money to get us out of this crisis, and the coronavirus pandemic has only added to the crisis, and to such an extent now that the American Federal Reserve, who you know are the main people controlling the American dollar, they are now investigating digital currency. So what that means is it's giving credence to these cryptocurrencies that have been around now for about 7 years, and there's several of them, there's more than Bitcoin. And what it shows is that the central banks are behind the curve with regard to digital currencies. So cryptocurrencies were born out of a protest against central banks controlling fiat currency. And so now they're trying to be in competition with them. The big difference is, of course, that the central banks will still control this digital currency, and which means they'll have even more control over how you can spend that digital currency. So this is a new warfare, and there's all sorts of warfares going on in the world. Not just military warfare, there's cultural warfare, there's religious warfare, there's financial warfare, and this is part of the financial warfare. And Christians should be interested in the finances of the country, because if the finances go wrong, you get civil war, and that is why Christians should be interested in the subject. So we're back to verse 9 of Psalm 33, for he did speak the word, and done it was without delay. So the word, in the Hebrew word here, when he spoke this, it says, and it was, and thus it was, is the verb to be. He just said it, and it was done, which is what we see in Genesis chapter 1, verse 3. Now, if you look at that verse, it says, he did speak the word, and done it was without delay, established it firmly stood, whatever he did say. The suddenness of creation is part of the reason for giving reverence to God. Let earth and all that live therein with reverence fear the Lord, for he did speak the word, and done it was without delay. So the very suddenness of the creation is bespeaking the glory of the Creator. And some of you who are ahead of me will be realizing that this is exactly what the evolutionary hypothesis stops and diminishes. It's diminishing this readiness to give glory to the Creator. It seeks to take away the glory of God as Creator. It cannot do so, but that's what it endeavours to do so, and it succeeds with far too many people. And so it's no wonder the next verse, which we did not sing, goes on to say, God doth the counsel bring to naught that heathen folk do take, and what the people do devise of none effect doth make. And the concept there, the Hebrew word there, is that he's crushing the counsel of the ungodly, that he's going to bring all their counsel and their opinions and their evolutionary hypothesis. He will crush it and bring it to nothing, and that's another big topic. But that's what we were singing about. And so may God bless you and keep you until the next time, God willing.